Once upon a time in a town called Oja, the girls were something else, beautiful, confident, and always dressed like queens. Almost every girl had 2 or 3 boyfriends. They wanted to look rich, and that needed money. To them, having just one boyfriend wasn't enough. Among all these girls, Ea stood out like a rainbow in the sky. She was the kind of beauty that made heads turn. Her skin shone like the morning sun, her eyes sparkled like stars, and her smile could light up a room. When Ea walked, it was like music. Her hips swayed, and her steps were bold, like someone dancing to the rhythm of her own song. Men always stopped to look at her twice, some even thrice. Ea had a boyfriend named Kallo. Kallo wasn't like the rich men in Oja town, but he was kind and hardworking, though also very hot-tempered. He ran a small bar where people came to drink and laugh after a long day. Kallo loved Ea with all his heart. He would share the last piece of meat in his soup with her, always making sure she was happy. They lived together in a small house behind the bar. At night, Ea would sometimes come to help Kallo serve customers, her pretty face drawing more people to the bar. But there was one thing about Ea that made Kallo sad: her love for expensive things. Ea always wanted more. "Look at me. Don't I deserve better? Why can't you buy me those beautiful things?" she would ask Kallo. He would sigh and say, "Ea, I'll get them for you one day. Just be patient." But in his heart, he knew it wasn't easy. He wasn't rich, and his bar didn't make much money. Still, he tried his best because he loved her. However, Ea's heart wasn't satisfied. She wanted more, and that's where the trouble began. Ea had a friend named Samet, but everyone called her Sammy. Sammy was the kind of girl who turned heads just like Ea, but in a different way. She was tall and slim, with skin that shone like polished gold and hair that fell like a black waterfall down her back. Sammy always had the latest wigs, the most beautiful shoes, and clothes that made her look like she had just stepped out of a big city. Unlike Ea, Sammy didn't struggle. If she wanted something, she snapped her fingers, and it was hers. Her family was well off, and she had men lining up to spoil her with gifts. Ea often visited Sammy, not just because they were friends, but because she admired Sammy's life. Sammy's room looked like a shop, filled with everything Ea could only dream of: colorful wigs, shiny jewelry, bags in every color, and shoes that sparkled like diamonds. One sunny afternoon, Ea sat on Sammy's soft bed, her eyes fixed on a golden wig lying on the table. She sighed deeply, her shoulders heavy with sadness. "Sammy," Ea began, her voice low, "I don't know what to do anymore. I want wigs like these, beautiful dresses, and jewelry that shines, but Kallo can't afford them. I don't even know if he tries." Sammy tilted her head, looking at Ea with sharp eyes. "Ea," she said, "you're too beautiful to live like this. Look at yourself. You deserve to live like a queen, not someone waiting for scraps." Ea shook her head, her heart caught in 2 places. "I love Kallo, Sammy. He's good to me. I can't cheat on him. I can't do that to him." Sammy laughed softly, shaking her head. "Ea, love doesn't buy wigs. Love doesn't buy shoes or fill your belly. Think about it. Almost every girl in Oja has more than one man. Why are you the only one holding yourself back?" Ea didn't know what to say. Her heart felt heavy, and her mind was filled with questions. Sammy sighed and stood up. She walked to her wardrobe, pulling out a golden wig, a few dresses, and a beautiful bag. She placed them in Ea's hands. "Take these," Sammy said. "Don't return them, but think about what I've told you. You can't live like this forever." Ea's eyes lit up as she held the gifts. "Thank you, Sammy," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. But deep inside, she still felt empty. The gifts were beautiful, but they weren't enough. Something was missing, and she didn't know what to do. As she walked home that day, her mind spun with Sammy's words, planting seeds that would soon grow into something dangerous. Days turned into nights. If you've made it this far, I encourage you to like and subscribe to the channel to continue enjoying fascinating content like this. Your support is very important to us. But Ea's heart stayed restless. The wig Sammy gave her looked beautiful, and the dresses made her feel special, but they weren't enough. Her eyes wandered to the other girls in Oja town. Girls draped in shining jewelry, holding bags so fine they looked like treasures, walking with confidence like queens. Ea wanted that life. The gifts from Sammy felt like drops of water in a desert. Her thirst for more was growing. One evening, EA returned to Sammy's house, her steps heavy but her mind made up. Sammy sat on her bed, painting her nails the color of roses. EA stood in the doorway for a moment before speaking. "Sammy," she said softly, "I'm ready." Sammy looked up and smiled, her face lighting up like the sun breaking through clouds. "I knew you'd come around," she said, putting her nail polish down. "Sit down, EA. Let me tell you about Chief Okafo." Sammy's voice was smooth, her words dripping with excitement. Chief Okafo is one of the wealthiest men in Oja. He has lands, cars, and money that never ends. He takes care of his women like they're queens. If you're with him, you'll never lack anything. EA's eyes widened. "But what does he want from me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Sammy laughed softly. "What do you think he wants?" "Your time, EA. He wants your beauty, and he's willing to pay for it." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. EA hesitated, her heart racing, but the thought of the life Sammy described was too sweet to resist. "Okay," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Sammy wasted no time. The next day, she took EA to meet Chief Okafo. The chief was a man of power, his presence filling the room like a roaring fire. His clothes were fine, his jewelry glittered like stars, and his smile was as smooth as melted butter. He looked at EA, his eyes sweeping over her like she was a prize. "EA," he said, his voice deep and commanding, "you are beautiful, and I can see you deserve the best. Stay with me, and I'll give you everything you want. Gold, dresses, trips to the finest places, whatever your heart desires." EA nodded, her mind spinning with dreams of a new life. She began sneaking out at night to meet Chief Okafo, leaving Callow at home. The chief spoiled her with gifts, golden necklaces, shiny bracelets, and dresses that sparkled like sunlight on water. He took her to expensive restaurants where the food was as rich as the people eating it. At home, Callow waited, his heart heavy with worry. EA stopped helping him at the bar. She became distant, her laughter fading, her love slipping through his fingers like sand. But Callow didn't know the full story yet. EA, lost in the sweetness of her new life, didn't realize she was walking deeper into a trap, one that would soon snap shut, leaving no way out. One night as they ate dinner, Callow watched her closely. "EA," he said softly, "where have you been going? You're not the same anymore." It didn't meet his eyes. "I've just been visiting Sammy," she replied, her voice flat. But Callow's heart whispered to him that she wasn't telling the truth. Days turned into nights, and EA's sneaking out became more frequent. Callow felt like a man losing grip on a rope, the love he held so dearly slipping away. One night, as the moon hung high like a watchful eye, Callow made up his mind, he would follow her. He waited in the shadows, his breath quiet, his heart pounding like a drum. EA left the house, her steps light, unaware that Callow was behind her. He followed her through the winding streets of Oja town until she stopped in front of a grand mansion. Callow's heart sank. The mansion's gate swung open, and EA stepped inside. Callow watched as she disappeared into the house, the glow of the mansion's lights swallowing her like a hungry beast. He didn't need to see more. His heart broke into pieces, sharp enough to cut through his soul. When EA returned home that night, Callow was waiting. His face was dark, his eyes heavy with pain. "EA," he said, his voice trembling, "why are you doing this to me? I loved you. I gave you everything I had." EA's face was cold, her eyes hard. "What do you have to give me, Callow?" she said, her voice sharp like the edge of a knife. "Chief Okafo treats me like a queen. He gives me what you never could." The night was silent, but Callow's heart roared with the sound of revenge. That night, sleep refused to visit him. He lay on his mat, staring at the ceiling as the fire of betrayal burned in his chest. His mind played EA's words over and over, each one cutting him like a blade. "What do you have to offer me, Callow?" "Chief Okafo treats me like a queen." Callow's face clenched, his teeth grinding together. "EA," he whispered, his voice filled with pain and rage, "you will regret ever knowing me. You played with my heart, and now you will pay." The hours passed slowly, but Callow's anger only grew. His love for EA, once soft and tender, had turned into something cold and sharp. He didn't want her to just leave. He wanted her to feel the same pain she had caused him. The thought of her laughter with Chief Okafo, the gifts she flaunted, and the love she threw away made his chest ache. I hope you enjoyed this amazing trip. Subscribe and don't miss our next video. See you next time.